Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series on the Sega Saturn. And today we're taking a look at Guardian Heroes, one of my favorite beat-em-up games of all time, and up to 2011 when I got an Xbox Live Arcade release, a Sega Saturn exclusive. And it's definitely one of those games that I keep a Saturn around for, not that I would get rid of my Saturn anyway, but this is one that I definitely pop in at least once a year and enjoy, because there's so many different branching paths, so many different story options, and so many different endings. I probably haven't even seen all of them, and I've owned this particular copy for probably about 7 or 8 years now. It's definitely not a cheap game. I will say that off the top. The Japanese copy is not going to be inexpensive. It's going to cost you well in excess of the price of a brand new game. But I think it's definitely worth it, and after the end of this video, maybe you can decide for yourself if you think it's worth it as well. But basically the main hook outside of being a beat 'em up is that it's not something in the vein of like Final Fight where you can move freely up or down in the screen. There's a plane system. Have you ever played Fatal Fury on the Neo Geo, the Real Bout series where you have those different planes? It's very similar to that actually. And I enjoy that because your enemies are on one of 3 planes, so it's not one of those situations where you think you're lined up for an attack, but you're a couple pixels off and you're just completely whiffing. If you're in front of your enemy and you're on the same plane, you can attack them, and that attack might get blocked, but it's at least going to make contact with the enemy either way. And I do really appreciate that about the game. But outside of the main gameplay aspects of it being an incredible beat 'em up, you get a ton of different story, and of course it's all in Japanese, but you can easily find an English translation online to be able to read through. But to me it just looks amazing. And the weird thing is, this actually got a lot of criticism from reviewers when it came out on the Saturn. They said the graphics look terrible, and while I get it's not a very visually, 3D powerful game whatsoever, I think the sprites look awesome, and there's tons of them on the screen at once, and the game moves really fluidly. And I mean, I understand in 1996, reviewers cared about 3D graphics, and anything that wasn't 3D seemed to lose review scores just based on the fact that it was an older visual style of gameplay. But I think any of those sort of comments about this game now just don't really hold any water, because I love the pixel art, I love the backgrounds, I love how they kind of scroll and scale in this little cutscene here, and I think it just makes a really strong impression. And then when you take the gameplay into consideration, the great sound effects, the soundtrack itself, it's all just an incredible package. And it's deeper than just your standard beat 'em up, because you have RPG elements in here. You're leveling up your stats. You have branching paths where you can select what level that you want to go to or what decision you want to make. And you'll see here in this screen, after that particular level, we have enough, stat points to kind of play around and increase our power or increase our health. So there is some strategy based in the game. And I am just using one of the available characters. Some characters have magical attacks, some are more melee based. So you get a lot of mix and match in what's going on with the game. And now that we're on to the next stage here, you get that nice idyllic mountain background, and you can see that there's 6 sprites on screen right now, and everything's moving really fluidly. Now I'd be lying if I said the game didn't have slowdown in spots. It does, but then again, what beat 'em up doesn't? They all seem to have it. Even some of the arcade releases like the Revenge of Death Adder, you can definitely slow the game down in spots. But the controls are ultra responsive. You feel like when you put an input in, it's not going to drop, all your attacks are hitting, and it gives you a really nice natural feel that when you're actually playing the game well and connecting, with the enemies and those attacks, everything clicks, and it's that really great beat 'em up experience that you just feel like you're on, for lack of a better term, and you're playing great, and you're definitely going to destroy the enemy in front of you. And you do get these nice little kind of quasi-boss encounters where you'll see the health bar up there. That boss has more hit points than everyone else on the screen. He's actually much larger, but his attacks are going to take a lot more off your health bar. And the game is definitely not the, most generous with the credits. You can increase your credit count, but definitely I don't think you're going to be able to beat this game on your first run. I certainly can't, and even during this capture playthrough, I think if I kept playing I probably would have been short on credits towards the end. But it just looks so great, it sounds so great. This is one of my favorite beat 'em ups of all time, and I do love the fantasy environment as well. I mean, it's definitely a game style that I've always enjoyed. When you had the Dungeons and Dragons beat 'em up on the CPS2 that were ported over to the Sega Saturn, I've done videos on those before. It's just a setting and a theme that I really appreciate, and if you're into it whatsoever, you're definitely going to enjoy it here as well. Because like I said, this game, it's just not cheap. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, go run out and buy this and have you pop over to eBay and find out you're going to be spending in excess of $100 to get it. but it's definitely worth it because compared to some other beat 'em ups, this has a longevity to it that you usually don't see. And you'll see here that I'm going to select an option, and I couldn't actually remember what it did because I didn't have my translation guide next to me, but we moved on to stage 11 now. What I'll let you do is watch the game, listen to it, the soundtrack's absolutely incredible, and I'll come back in about a minute and keep talking about it. Otherwise, enjoy the fight. I will say one of the difficulties of the game, you see here there's one enemy left on that right hand side screen, is that they can sometimes jump back and forth on the planes when you're down to just a few opponents, and you kind of have to play a little bit of chase with them. What I do love about this game is all those different character portraits and these little story vignettes you get, because it actually is trying to tell you a story as best as a 1996 beat-em-up game can. And like I said, considering it's in Japanese, you're going to need a little assistance figuring out what that story is, but it is your typical relatively good, sort of fantasy story involved in it. And you can pick this up on Xbox Live Arcade. It is still downloadable. I don't prefer that version for a few reasons. One is that they expanded the game to 16:9, and I enjoy the original 4:3 aspect ratio presentation of it. And while you can get the original graphics on that game in the Xbox Live Arcade version, they still don't look exactly right. And the remix graphics with a lot of the smoothing and different effects, it just doesn't feel or look like the same game, and I think that is a disappointment because I think this is just absolutely incredible sprite and pixel art, and I like playing it on the Sega Saturn, both for the control pad, which feels super natural and responsive because the Saturn still has one of the best controllers of all time. It also just looks right, it sounds right, it feels right. That's what I'm used to, so that's what I recommend. But if you do want to play the game, it's still great on Xbox Live Arcade, and it's definitely going to be a lot cheaper. But if you're a retro game collector, if you're a Sega Saturn collector and you don't have this yet, it's definitely going to be money well spent if you're into these type of genres. And you will see there I lost my first life, and definitely the enemies start getting a lot more powerful. This boss here has a freezing attack, and he's definitely going to juggle you and get you into a situation where it's more difficult to escape from, but the learning curve and the difficulty aren't too bad. And I do love this particular stage intro here. We're actually not going to play the stage, we're just going to be given a choice, and we're going to move on. And you definitely get different playthrough experiences as you play the game more. Your first playthrough is going to be different than your 10th playthrough, that's going to be different than your 20th playthrough. So longevity wise, the money that you're paying to acquire it on the Saturn, you're definitely getting your money's worth out of it versus maybe an expensive 2D fighting game where 10 minutes in, you've beaten it, and sure you can go back and play different characters, but you might feel like your investment wasn't 100% warranted. But that is Guardian Heroes. It's one of my all-time favorite games on the Sega Saturn, and one of my favorite beat-em-ups of all time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you could do us a huge favor, go down below and hit like and subscribe. It takes us a lot of time, effort, and energy to make these videos, and we do appreciate your support. If you can, hit that notification bell. But if you played the game before, leave a comment below and tell me what you thought, because I always love hearing your feedback. I don't like talking into an echo chamber, and I want to get you guys involved as much as possible, because I can't stress enough how much I genuinely enjoy this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and it's definitely top 3 favorite games on the Sega Saturn. And you'll see we get these larger enemy sprites here. They just look gorgeous. Pick the game up, emulate it, get it on Xbox Live Arcade, but if you haven't played this game before, however you choose to do so, definitely play it. Short of that, we'll be back next Tuesday with an episode in the Sega Saturn series. We'll have videos on Friday and Sunday with other topics as well. We really hope you enjoyed watching Guardian Heroes, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you next Tuesday for more Saturn goodness. If you have any questions, leave them below. Bye-bye.